All right. Okay, there we are. Live streaming on YouTube. Good morning, Sharon. How are you this morning?
Well, I got up this morning and decided to go back to the 6-step process because I've had some stuff coming up, and I don't want it in the way I see the 6-step process. It's the same as like the release technique that Rafi does,
Yeah, yeah.
only it's putting pen to paper. And during COVID, I bought Dietrich's program because I have to tell you, when I take complete responsibility, there's peace. But
Right.
the ego's very loud lately. So
Yes. Yes, and I understand that completely. And so
I'm
yeah,
around a lot of egos, and I see the addiction to the ego. I see a lot of stuff, and I see just the idea that being a victim or being mean to someone is so painful. So painful.
oh yeah.
It's almost, but it wasn't years ago. You would just think you were right. But now, no, it's absolutely painful.
Oh no, I guarantee you it was painful years ago. You just didn't know the depth of the pain that you were
Right.
experiencing.
Right.
You were not aware of the depth that you were experiencing the pain, but it was underneath, and this is why we have uh, so much going on that's so insane in our lives is because we are unknowing of the depth of the grief that we are
And the
experiencing.
guilt, grief, it's all the same. Like I feel there's such a depth. You just said it. There's a depth that Ken has always talked about. And the ego in this mind will say, well, maybe it won't be that way for me, but it is. It's a lot of grief and a lot of guilt and grief, I guess, is the same.
Yeah, it
So
all comes from the same root, which is anger,
yeah,
anger at God for not giving us what we wanted or what we
right.
thought we wanted, anger at God for letting us come into this crazy world. And yeah, and we're experiencing that in a very visceral way. You feel it in your body.
Yeah.
So it's definitely there's a reason for all that. So I'm going to get our share screen going and we can look at our book, which Sharon and I are reading, Never Forget to Laugh, Personal Reflections of Bill Thetford, the co-scribe of A Course in Miracles. And of course, that what we were just talking about is that actual forgetting to laugh. Why? Because we think that what's happening to us is real. Now, I listened to a couple different people yesterday who were on here sharing, and they were talking about the real things that happened to them when they were kids. That my father really did reject me. My mother really did ignore me. And of course, if you study A Course in Miracles, you come to understand that the our thought about that reality is really an illusion. It's a dream because there was no mother and there was no
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But when you start to really get it, you know, um, and the other thing is, I'm aging, and the ego is very angry at aging. It just is, and
is it
so it's just,
happier with death? Does it think, oh, I'd rather be dead than getting old?
oh, it says a lot of things, you
Yeah,
just have to, I mean, we all have the same ego, when it comes down to it. And it says a lot of things. And, it's kind of like, it's just the guilt that shows up in my daily life that I have, you know, is it the oncological guilt? Well, yeah, at the crux, it's all that. But, to get there, sometimes it's hard because, because I'm lazy, I think. That's what I'm seeing anyway.
oh yeah, blame yourself. Yeah, I'm lazy. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. There's
right.
something wrong with me that's causing, this to happen when the only thing that's really happening is I'm believing a story, and that
Right.
story becomes so so overwhelming. It's like this is my whole life. And so the idea of, going with Diedrich's work, the choose again, the whole point of it is to say, when you first had that feeling about, when was it the first time you thought that you were lazy? Is it something that your mother said, something that your father said, something that, you heard, and then and instead of saying, what does that have to do with me? You said, oh, this is all about me.
Right.
Of course, I'm the
Yeah.
subject here. So, I'm lazy. I'm rude. I'm angry. I'm afraid. You call yourself all these things, and those are not, none of that is a reality of
None of it. No.
yeah. And so it has
None
nothing to
of it
do.
is even mine.
Exactly.
It belongs to a thought system, period.
Yeah, yeah. A
And
thought
I want to
system
be
that we
right
were,
and believe that. And, you know, honestly, I have to kind of stay away from my addictions, which is drama,
yeah,
and get used to, it's kind of like a detox when you're a drama addict.
it is a detox. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Because after you start asking the questions, what does this have to do with me? How does that make me something when nothing can make you anything because you are already what you are?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a
Yeah. I
believable
mean, it's
story.
like Rafi was sharing yesterday in Dove's meeting, and it was so helpful because when unconsciously I was teaching yesterday at junior high, and it was not a hard day at all. It was beautiful. But the walking in the school was like a football field to get to one side to the other. And I got tired, and boy, did he go come back and sorry, Lynn.
God
And
bless
it just kind of like, and I saw that, I was trying to get this world to be oneness. Well, it can't be oneness. We can't have a holy ego. It's impossible. We all try that. So to get out of the thought system, you can't be the person. And that takes just the willingness to see how much the
God
darkness is.
bless you. God bless you. God
Is this
bless you.
allergy, you think?
Yeah. Allergy to
You,
hearing the truth about yourself.
yeah,
Just
both.
kidding.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell my truth about the ego because I'm not really the
Exactly.
ego either.
Exactly.
And the thing is, the ego would make up a story and say, I have the nicest ego. Nobody has a nice ego. Nobody.
No. Yeah, and it's so funny because yes, yesterday, in Dove's meeting, I really wanted to say, you should really check into the 6 steps. You really ought to, check into
Right.
this work that Choose Again has done, because it does put things in the right place, and instead of being it's all about me, it becomes it's a story that I'm telling myself.
That's right.
It's a
Well, it's
story that
funny
I
because
believe.
Diedrich starts and says it's about me because what he's saying it is it's about me, my mind. So it's about what
Right.
I'm believing about this person that I think I am, that I'm truly a person. Look at me, I'm here. But no, your mind, and you're choosing two different thought systems, and the thought system that really hates us. It really does. It doesn't have any idea what we are, and it can only be in duality. So yeah, you're a nice person one minute, and the next minute you're horrible. So this was happening subconsciously. And I just realized after, Cliff went to sleep last night, I was listening to your yesterday's Dove's meeting, and I just got so much out of it because there's like shame in this system that I'm not further along, that I still fall down the monkey, the rabbit hole. And you know what? It means nothing when you fall down. It's just laughing at it. But for me, it took vigilance because I got mad at my husband in a way that I don't like to do that. He's very nice, and I don't like to do that. So the ego would like me to believe he did something wrong and it was just my mood that I'm getting older and I can't do what I used to, like as if I'm going to stay young. My next birthday, I'll be 70. You just have to realize they're not the same person. You've never been the person.
Right. Oh, I know. It's just I'm grateful for the getting older, and I'm so glad, I'm 71. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that, I'm still here, and that that I
Right,
still have work to do, and that there's still a place for me. That here I am, bringing about the atonement, expressing the atonement through
right,
my very life and being. And so, that's because of the focus. The focus is not on, what is not working. The focus is on what is working now. And what is working now is I am more sure of myself, more joyful, more loving, more kind, more patient, more joyful. All I get is more and more and more and more and more. And so what if the body is not able to walk across a couple of football fields? Uh, I have a walker. I bought a really nice rollator
right.
walker.
I could do, yeah. I mean, the bottom line is to put so much meaning on the person is a trap. Michaela is put her hand up, so I want to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
acknowledge.
please go ahead, McKaylee.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you both. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Sharon. Oh, I love what you said, Sharon, and about your husband. And yeah, I mean, I just have to laugh at myself when I do silly little things like that. But I just want to read you both out of Ken Wapnick's book, just a short little paragraph, The Healing Power of Kindness on Volume 1, Releasing Judgment. And he says here on page 12, second paragraph, recall the speech of the Lama of Shangri-La that Ken had quoted in the introduction. When you set aside the brilliant metaphysics of A Course in Miracles and its sophisticated psychological insights, the Course could be pared down to the Lama's one simple rule. And his rule is be kind. If you are not kind, then not only are you not practicing the Course, but there is no way you can even begin to understand it. No matter how brilliant your understanding of its metaphysics may be, if you are not being kind toward another person, especially when that person is in trouble, in fear, pain, or whatever, you are not doing what this course is asking. And so I just thought that was really beautiful what you were sharing, Sharon. And then he just goes in a little deeper in the next paragraph. A Course in Miracles helps us understand why we are not kind if we believe we have not been kind to God, attacking Him in order to exist on our own. We inevitably believe He will not be kind to us because we repress that threatening thought, split it off, project it out, and make a world in which we then feel justified in being unkind. This is the origin of our unkindness. So it's just beautiful, Sharon, that you were able to look at it because you were stepping out from it. And when you're stepping out from it, you're not it. So thank you.
Right. It was just the mind, and I was picking it up. But when I hurt someone that I love, it's very, very hard. Of course, I don't do this often. Since I would say when I was younger in my 40s, I was crazy. I mean, a lot of stuff happened to me, and honestly, I I thought I was justified to act out and all this other stuff. So when the behavior comes up again, um, because of the guilt that's still there, I just want to just pause. You know, Here I went and I was taking a shower last night, came out, and then projected all this stuff onto my husband. It had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with my mind and what it was saying to me. Not my mind, the ego mind that doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. That's how pathetic it was for me yesterday. So I apologized this morning and I just have to let it go. But the thing is, these are good things when they happen because you get to see yourself and clearly. And you're right. As soon as I acknowledged it, I didn't want to be right. There's nobody that's right in the ego. And we're all victims and victimizers. That's all we do all day long. So thank you. Thank you, McCallie. That was very, nice of you to share that with us.
Yeah. And the kindness really, you can't be kind to someone else if you're not kind to yourself.
Yes, yes.
And that because that seems like a sacrifice then. Oh, why do I have to be so nice to them when I'm the one who's feeling badly over here? Well, I gotta get myself together first and be kind to myself because, you know, I I have obviously mistaken who I am, and who I am would never ever, I would never ever talk to another person the way I talk to myself. And if I did, I would know I was insane. So,
Yes, that's
this
exactly
is
it.
the thing
Hmm.
you have to think about, what is my purpose here? What am I
To
here
be
for?
love.
Yeah, to be loved and be
It's so
loved,
simple, but
to
when I was
experience
at this
love.
school yesterday, the limits of how, when I had to get to one class to the other, actually the children were wonderful. They weren't hard. I'm good with kids. They were junior high, so you know what they're like. They're very hormonal. It's that they call you when you're a substitute, they call you, and she wanted me to go from where I was to another side of the school and get there like in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I couldn't. And I felt like the ego was like, "Oh, you can't do this anymore. You know how it does it. You're not good at this, everything. And who cares?" So I returned keys to them this morning, and I just realized I don't want to be there because that particular school is going to always put me in a position where I'm not comfortable. And there's so many schools to work for. So, and I don't have to work either, by the way. I just do it because I want to contribute because we're helping, our kids when we can. And, Cliff is much more mindful of money than I've ever been. I'm not good with money, and that's just the way that this mind took money on. I'll give it away before, and somebody like my husband who's very good at it, I just sometimes resent, and that's the ego. So it's a story my mind wanted to make up to keep me separate.
Yeah, and to make you a victim.
Oh
To
yeah, yeah.
oh man, why do they have to build this,
Oh,
this
there's
way?
and they're
Why do I
taking
have to go through this?
advantage.
Yeah, why? Yeah, exactly. So, there's so much that you can look at with that. And I'm just so grateful that these things are brought up to me because, if I didn't have limitations, if I was just, free and clear as anything and just having a happy, joyful, I have everything I need, I'm not, there's nothing that can hurt me. I'm not sick. If I was having just a totally joyful life with uh, no upsets or no restrictions, then, I wouldn't, I wouldn't even be thinking about these things. But these things are given to me so that I can look at them and determine, is this real? Is this me? Is
Right.
this true? Is this what it's supposed to be?
Yep.
And once you start looking at it, that's when you can regain your freedom. You'll never regain your freedom as long as you're, living, on the fat of the land. You're just it's just not set up for you that way. And there's sometimes, yes, we do have times of respite when things are not going, bad, and we don't have to worry about our children. We don't have to worry about, um, what's going on in the world. Those times do come to us as well. Uh,
Yes.
but that's so that we can remember there's a peace that we can find. And what's standing between me and that peace now is lack of money or time, or my body's not feeling good, or all these things. And the key is to find peace here where all everything has gone to shit.
Right. It's just so helpful. Like when when people come out, like the way Cindy was yesterday and Ralphie, and just see where they're at. It gives us it disarms our minds to say, oh, well, this is happening to everyone, really. We all get tripped up sometimes.
Exactly. I would love so much to send Cindy to see Diedrich, to spend some time. I think it would be so helpful for her. Of course, it was helpful for me. It was helpful for you, and
But it's
I
not
was
helpful when I leave it in the drawer. It's only
no.
helpful. You see, I have a habit of doing stuff like that, and I just want to be honest with myself. Why do I want to still be right? Why do I? And I'm going to tell you what sets me off. This thing that happened yesterday. The ego just got very upset about, the political climate. And
Oh,
as soon as you get into that political climate, out comes the Pandora's box. Everything that you've hidden comes up.
yep. Yep. And it's not just you can be in the political climate and just laugh at it and say this is obviously not real. And
Right. I
and
haven't done that yet.
yeah, look, and McKaylee has her hand up also again. But I was thinking, look, 100 years from now, people are going to be looking back on this and going, "Wow, what crazy stuff that was! How brave some people were! How there's going to be a whole history of it that's going to be being taught in schools, and it depends on which way we go. It might be, oh, here's how we got to have this lovely dictatorship." Or here's how we fought and
Right.
saved ourselves. But either way, it's still a story. It's
That's
still
right.
a story.
That's
So
right.
no matter
Yeah.
which way you look at it. So it's not true at all. McKaylee, please, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
I just, that's beautiful. I just wanted to say that, yes, I mean, I think it's beautiful what happened, Sharon, because, you're looking at it, the what, who is the one who is doing the looking? You're out, that is outside of town, outside of
Right.
time. That
Yeah.
is in awareness. So the beauty of that is that that was supposed to happen because you're to take it deeper in the fact that you looked at it. So you're taking it deeper. And kindness is everything. It's it's just being kind. That's what Mother Teresa did. I used to volunteer with the Sisters of Mother Teresa down in Tijuana, Mexico, and it was just
Wow.
a beautiful experience. And they were kind to everybody, and they saw Jesus in that person. And that's, so sometimes it's like Ken said, sometimes you have to leave even the words and the metaphysics of the blue book, meaning the course, behind, and just be kind. And so a lot of times I'll just think, when my ego wants to do something, I have to think, sometimes I just think of Mother Teresa, what would she do? And she saw the Christ in, every person. And so, like with your husband or politics, you have to laugh at it and be kind, but you
Right.
stepped out of it. You stepped out of time. And that was so beautiful. And now you could just
Thanks.
continue to take it deeper. You took it deeper. Thank you.
McKelly, I can say this. You know how Ken would always say, you must look at the darkness. I look at the darkness, and then I don't
It'll
want
be
the ego for a couple weeks, and then more stuff comes up. Now, the thing is, what I saw yesterday is how mean it is, not just to me, but to others, and it's not okay. It's just not okay. So I just feel like, I think it was necessary for me to see that no matter which way you turn it, that you'll never have a nice ego, not ever.
Well,
Not a
the
nice.
beauty, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, well,
yeah.
the beauty of that, Sharon, is that you looked at it and then you don't judge it. Because now the ego wants you to judge it because
Right. It
it
wants me
wants
to,
to
yeah.
it wants to beat you up because it wants guilt there.
Yes,
You just
yes,
don't
yes.
judge. You just
And
laugh
now,
at
like, these 6 steps that Diedrich has taught, they're really good because they take you in a place where you're safe with really looking at your beliefs. And my belief is I don't matter. That's something that I made up as a child, and it came up through my life, and that belief doesn't serve the Son of God. So, I'm just writing it out and getting it done, just because some minds are harder. Like, I can say, what does it have to do with me through the day? But when something really bothers me, I have to write it. So,
Yeah, and it really is you have to really want to do it. It's not like,
yes,
it's
that's
so
a good
easy to
point.
just say, "Oh, I can do this later," or "It really doesn't matter right now," or and stuff it down, stuff it down, stuff it down. It's like the Jack in the Box. You can stuff that guy down inside of there, and that little spring is just getting all tension. And as soon as that thing goes pop, boom, it's up there.
That's right.
And it
Yep,
doesn't matter how old I am or how many times I do it, I still jump when the thing goes pop in the Jack in the Box. I
right.
still do. It's primordial.
I think that's true. Yeah. I mean, some of us, though, like for me, I was an anger repressor. So when I get angry, it comes out from all different ends because I don't, and I blame just like every other ego. And that, that's a problem. I mean, when I think about one time Ken was, he was in the house alone, Ken Wapnick, and he was saying to, his teaching, he was sharing that he tripped and he went, Glory, and Glory wasn't there. And he said, you see how quick the ego is? It's
Yeah,
that quick. There's no glory. You know what I'm saying? Like, right.
absolutely. I
And my
do that
husband didn't do
myself.
one thing. Life is the way it is. You know, I probably, if what happened to you happened to me, Lynn, I'm not sure that I would have handled it as graceful, but that's a goal for me. That's a goal. And the only way it's going to be if I just get honest with myself. It's never about anyone but me, my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. And that's the kind of, it's always about me. It's always about what is going on in my mind, but it's never about what has happened to me or what is how
Right. It's never about that. Right.
it's always about what I react to whatever it is that happened. So
Yes.
yeah, and that's why the whole that whole choose again system where the first thing that he asked when you're saying, I'm really angry, I'm really frustrated, I'm really whatever, and when was the first time that you ever felt that feeling? And how can you remember back to when you were a small child and your parent ignored you or they smacked you because you said something they didn't approve of or they didn't hear what you said and they smacked you because they thought they heard something different and you were innocently doing nothing. Whatever it is. Believe me, I've been smacked around a lot. But what that does is, you think it all has to do with you. Like, oh, I'm bad. Obviously I must be bad or this wouldn't be happening to me. And so it really is the looking at, and it had nothing to do with me. It had to do
Right.
with them unable to maintain their composure or their, lack of wanting to hear what I had to say or whatever. It had nothing to do with me. And yet I blame myself, and I think that I'm the I'm the one at fault, mea culpa. And so this work that we're doing is so um, helpful
It's
because
imperative for me.
yeah,
When I listened to how you were with Cindy yesterday, I just my heart opens and said, I just love you, Lynn,
hmm,
because I love that you just, we're a lot in some ways we're alike because I'm a nurturer, really, but I'm not quite sure when you nurture the way you were with her, these souls that struggle, all of us are struggling. I mean, there's no one here that's not, if unless you completely realize that none of this is real, and Dove has come full circle. When I listen to him, I feel like, whoa, because he just is saying things in a way, for at least for this mind, where it just stops the mind and I'm in complete peace. So I am
yeah.
grateful for the group that we have. I'm so grateful.
I know it. We are so lucky. So let's go looking at our book here.
Okay.
We're reading Never Forget to Laugh, and I just had to look. I'm like, what the heck is all this? This Murphy. This is something Carol put in here that she says Ken must have known about this teaching because it was during his time, but it really isn't about Ken thinking anything that this Murphy guy was saying. Not Ken, Bill was thinking about this Murphy guy. It was all about her thoughts about it. Anyway, so we left on this paragraph. I'm just going to read this so we
Okay.
can move forward. Um, so so the whole idea that this Murphy fellow had is that we come into the world highly formed at birth with fundamentally different and unique predispositions, um, and that goes along with our idea that what we're doing now was a story that was written long ago, and we're just here living it out in this incarnation, in this life, but that we come with inherently unique and distinctive energy patterns. Uh, and so they were learning about that during Bill's time at school. So Murphy also lamented Western researchers' failure to examine the Eastern approach to man's psychology, which included the spiritual dimensions of life. And I'm sure that's probably because the Western world was consumed with Christianity, etc. So it says, a quote from this Murphy: in a future psychology of personality, there will surely be a place for directly grappling with the question of man's response to the cosmos, his sense of unity with it, the nature of his aesthetic demands upon it, and his feelings of loneliness or of consummation in his contemplation of it. It is quite likely that selfhood will be better understood when reference is made to the primordial non-self matrix from which it arises, and that the synthesis, the capacity of human nature to function at self and non-self levels at the same time, this is hard to read, or to alternate when it is so desires, may prove to be an enrichment of personality far greater than that which the cult of self-contained, self-defined individuality can grant. So I think basically what he's saying is if we start looking at looking at it as the non-self from which all of this arises, that we're going to get out of this cult of personality, which makes me think of that song. So so anyway, I'm going to move on. Um, Carroll says, with this, Murphy seems to anticipate both the modern day quantum physics and the foundational premise of A Course in Miracles. In addition to what he was learning about psychology in general and client-centered psychotherapy in particular, Bill's exposure to music broadened and deepened during his years in graduate school, both interests dear to his heart. So, all who knew him in later life can attest to his deep and abiding love for music. His home was continuously filled with music playing in the background. He had listened to friends' classical music collections as much as possible during his years at the University of Chicago and fell in love with Mozart. In fact, he was so intimately acquainted with Mozart's music that after hearing a few bars of a recorded piece, he could accurately identify both the performers and the conductor of that particular recording. As he became more musically sophisticated during this time, his love of opera grew, and he realized that a good way to become more familiar with it was to usher at the Chicago Opera House, home to several large opera companies. He was on a tight budget, but after saving enough to buy a tuxedo required for the position, he did indeed become an usher there. Through attending every performance possible, he developed a deep appreciation for and knowledge of that particular art form. That is really interesting. I just have to say, to first off, admittedly, I am not fond of opera. I don't have any great love of that art form. So, but that, if it was, Madison Square Garden and I got to usher for Billy Joel or, something like that, that would be
We're
different.
also unique. I mean, he is a very I would say that he's a scholar too. What I mean by that, they're intellectuals. So
Right.
they, yeah.
But it's also think of, and this is just my own personal thought, is that it, when you're thought of as being an intellectual, then in order to maintain that uh, aspect in your mind, you do things that deepen you into that particular form. So he did that so he could be around opera more. When I was younger, I really wanted to uh, be an artist. That was my whole dream, a poet and artist. I wrote poetry continuously, and I drew and painted all the time. And I would, like make it regular visits to the art museum, and I read poetry and did live poetry readings and all that kind of stuff. Not so much because I really loved going to the art museum, but it kept me educated to a certain extent so that I could intellectually banter with other people who were in that same place, in that same where I wanted to be, that social and cultural place that I wanted to be. And this was when I was a kid. I was like, 11, 12 years old. I was not a grown-up person doing this. I was, 12 years old, doing, poetry readings at a local coffee house. And, and people, because I wore really thick glasses, I had my eyes were really bad, and I wore really thick glasses, and so they called me Coke Bottle or Cokey or Coke because they were like the bottoms of a Coke bottle, my glasses, or Coke bottle kid sometimes. But that was a persona that I developed because I had a desire to be in that circle, in that. Do you hear what I'm saying? Does this make any sense at all?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. It does. You know, the thing that I'm seeing, like with all of us, we all have our gifts. Like for you, it was you like that music. I like Broadway. I'm all about shows, and so I would do that. But yes, I understand what you were saying about what they said to you. You know, the thing that I find fascinating is how curious you are as a person because you've tried so many things, which I love. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, well, I always thought I was going to be something. I mean, that's the whole thing. Was
Isn't
I
that the
thought I
whole
was going to
thing?
be
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. And this
So,
mind that used to be this really good art teacher is starting to it doesn't have the same information because remember I stopped working at 55. So for 10 years, I didn't or 15 years I didn't really work and now I'm doing it again and the ego is not nice about it. It just is judging and I have to like look at life a little bit differently. Like, you know, sometimes it's just easy to realize you're really nothing. And everything you've done here was done through you. You've done nothing by yourself. It's
exactly.
all,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, so nobody has credit. But these are all good reminders. Um,
Definitely.
you know what I see in Bill, though? And look, again, I didn't know him, but he's gentle, I feel. He has a gentleness where when I read things about Helen, she didn't appear gentle as egos. There's some egos that are more gentle. I see a gentleness in him. Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. But I also think that he probably had, uh, still some repressed anger from, his family situation. And so, but we don't see it all. We don't know all of it.
No, no. And the undoing for every one of us is not a simple one. Like a lot of
Exactly.
people will talk about Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie, but they don't realize the years they suffered. You
Right. And
see?
Katie was so mean that people were scared of her.
Right.
Everybody was terrified of Byron Katie.
Right.
which is hard even to imagine. The other thing too, I was going to say, um, uh, what Liz Cronkite said on Sunday, which I'm still kind of, really um, looking at, is that we are the expression of the atonement. The atonement is expressing
Yes.
through us in whatever way we happen to be presenting.
Yeah.
So, I'm presenting as this now. When I was 12, I was presenting as that. And, the whole time, it's all been for the purpose of the atonement. So,
That's all it
that's,
is. It's like a winding down of the atonement. And we feel, the way I took this on as the ego, well, look, I'm getting that, I'm getting this. Look, there's no one to get anything. It's already done, over with. And the thing that Liz is, the way she shares, is all about, her experience. And her experience was, she didn't talk about it with John Mundy, but she did with the Course in Miracles support. She's gone through a lot of hell in waking up. She was in complete terror for 2 years. And she
right.
didn't say, yeah, terror. And the same with, I don't know their names, Course in Miracles support, Lloyd and his lovely
Oh,
partner.
Stephanie,
Yeah, they're just sweet. And
they are
Stephanie,
really cute.
Stephanie still has terror. Now, I had a lot of terror in my life, Lynn, so I'm sure I could handle it. But my ego would probably say, oh, there you go. You're falling into a depression again, things like that. So
Yeah,
I do like the information that's out there now, because if we go back and even in our process, you and I started on Gather around the same time. Maybe you were a year before me. And the seriousness for me is happening now, you know? I mean, it was always like, I want my children to be okay. Well, both my sons are going through a lot right now, physical and mental. And, I'm just realizing if I step in the way of their process, that's not helpful to them. So I've got to step back, stop being this, like, loving mother so you can be better than your mother.
yeah.
Right.
It-
So it's
it-
like, it's acceptance. It's just like, but that's why I need the groups. I was writing with Glorian today about that because I feel like yesterday she told me that Amy had a wonderful, wonderful group last night.
It was really beautiful. And
It's
what's so beautiful now too is that because we're not recording it and we're not putting it on YouTube, that maybe people might be able to be a little more open about, what their situation
right.
is or what's going on. And I certainly did see that with Marcy last night, which, I'm just really grateful she's back too. But, people come and go, and she's been through a hell over the last few months, which, none of us really knew. But that's, enough that she was able to come back and say, I've been going through hell and here I am now. I came out, I went through hell and I kept walking.
The
So
terror is coming up from the separation, and it's not personal. So we could all experience that, but to hold each other and say you're really not that is so helpful.
yes.
I'm going to say that what I was hearing a lot from teachers over the years, some were helpful, some weren't. But when I get someone to really tell me that, yes, it's a simple path, but it's not easy always, right? So we're going to be dealing with thought forms that we believe are real when nothing is real, nothing.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that, I mean, that's really what we have to be looking at, is that belief that says, that because the whole thing comes down to a belief that who God is really incompetent, and
Right,
God really doesn't care, and God is not paying attention. And I mean, this is what we come to understand when we're looking at, how the ego sees things, is the whole idea. And that's where the anger comes in. I'm so pissed that God is not paying attention and let this happen.
right,
So, we come down to it. And we don't, until we recognize that, oh, God said you can do whatever the heck you want to do, just, because he knew we couldn't be hurt. But we're seeing it as uh he was not paying attention, which he really obviously is all he knows his children. God knows his children.
Yeah.
You know your children. This is the thing. I know my children. All right. So all my fears for my children come from an idea that they are doing something or something that's happening to them that shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be in this situation. They shouldn't be experiencing this thing. Would I take away from my child the thing that's going to open their eyes to the reality of the world? Would I say to my, would I put my child in a cocoon and say, all right, mommy's going to take care of you now and you don't have to worry about anything. Well, you know what happens in a cocoon? When a caterpillar builds a cocoon and goes inside of it, it doesn't just grow wings, it actually dissolves and becomes it dissolves into like a chemical goop that is not recognizable as a caterpillar in any way at all. And
Mm.
then it rearranges itself into the form of a butterfly inside of this tight little cocoon where it has no ability to move around or do anything. So these are all things that are happening. It's being transformed from the caterpillar to the butterfly. But if we go and open up that cocoon and say, "Oh, let me see what's going on in here because I don't think it's working right," we're going to kill the thing and it's never going to come. It will never turn into a butterfly. And that's what we do with our children. We look at them and say, "Oh, well, let me open this up for you. Let me fix this for you." What we're doing is preventing them from reforming to being the person that they truly are. And
And it's
so,
lessons. And it's also, I think that, the subconscious mind for me wanted to be better than my mother.
mhm.
And and that is what's come out. And also just the annoying part of the ego of comparing. I mean, compare oh, you know what, Lynn, continue talking because this is Cliff. Hold, I'll
Oh,
be right
okay.
there.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to keep reading so we get somewhere in our book here until you come back. So reading Bill Thetford, Never Forget to Laugh, Personal Recollections of a Co-Scribe of Course in Miracles, and this is by Carol Howe. Um, So after receiving his PhD, something he had doubted he would ever get, Bill still wasn't sure what to do with it, although he knew it provided something akin to a union card in his field. He also realized that psychology really did appeal to him. This is not this guy is like, I'm craving to become a PhD psychologist. It's like, well, here I am. I might as well do it. So he realized that psychology really did appeal to him, and that this field felt exciting, rewarding, and compatible with his most basic nature. In his autobiography, he noted that for the first time, he really started to feel good, health-wise, to find himself and to form some good and lasting friendships. Although feeling at home and invigorated in the intellectual world of psychology, Bill was also experiencing some disappointments. He had hoped his parents would be proud of him. Here we go. We're going to the parents. What does mom and dad think about me? That's my worth, right? He had hoped his parents would be proud of him for earning a PhD and at such a young age, 25, but they seemed incapable of understanding his field, his basic interests, or his talents and accomplishments. To put his early years in context, theirs was a lower middle class family, the parents knowing no other than hard physical work. His father was one of 10 children from a poor coal mining family in southern Illinois, though later he became a superintendent in the building and construction department of the telephone company. Survival was important, culture was not. Bill had become ill at age 7 during the depths of the Great Depression when life was generally difficult. Having lost 2 children earlier, His father worried greatly about how he might have to support this ailing child, who very likely would never be able to do strenuous physical work. How would he be able to support himself? His father often verbalized his fear that Bill would end up on the dole, a welfare case. With their worldview, his parents could hardly appreciate his academic pursuits. They thought a PhD was a worthless piece of paper to hang on the wall, useless in finding a real job. Of course, Bill was aware of their lack of support for his accomplishments and took that as a personal affront, adding grievances to his growing store. We know he had been greatly affected by his sister's early death and can assume there was some upset about Joe's Dear John letter. These hurts and disappointments were internalized and carried forward for decades, creating a basis for later conflicts and frustrations. As Bill was graduating, his parents retired to Florida because his mother was not well. She had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and advised to move to a better climate. Alone now in Chicago, though more content than ever, his next venture was at the Michael Reese Hospital, a newer Jewish training hospital in Chicago, the place to be. A
I'm
fellow
back anyway.
graduate.
I've been back for a while. I just want to thank you for taking my.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
This is really interesting. Yeah. So, a fellow graduate student mentioned to Bill that a physician had unexpectedly, now this is what's so cool about Bill's life. A physician had unexpectedly become available with Dr. Samuel Beck, head of the psychology department and a leading authority on the Rorschach test, which is a method of psychological evaluation in which the subject's perception of ink blots are recorded and then analyzed using intuitive insight and/or complex scientifically derived algorithms. This test is used to examine personality characteristics and emotional function. Bill applied and Beck offered him a position to study schizophrenia and the Rorschach test, funded by the National Institute for Mental Health. After Bill explained that he knew nothing about the Rorschach test, Beck assured him he considered that to be an asset, as it would allow him to conduct research uncorrupted by someone else's teaching. He was also enthusiastic about Bill's PhD dissertation, thinking it sounded most scientific, a plus. This first position as a doctor of psychology allowed Bill to become acquainted with, among other things, personality tests and measurements, which would prove useful as his career unfolded. Working there also provided the unusual experience of being the only non-Jewish member of the department. He wondered if he would be accepted, a question of possible reverse discrimination, but he certainly was. His fellow staffers often explained their Yiddish jokes to him. After 2.5 years, the grant ended and he chose to move on. But where? The University of Chicago and Michael Reese Hospital were the city's most interesting and challenging places to work. And he had now been there, done that. This is so cool. And I think I'm just going to stop here. Let me
And if you
see.
ever want to read it on Thursdays too, because it's going to take us forever. If you ever just give me a call because I'm here on Thursdays too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah,
Because it's a very long book, but I find it to be helpful and just wonderful to just read about him.
absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing this with me. And I think the thing that's the most wonderful about it is the actual sharing that we do.
Connecting with you is wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone here. I love this group. So yeah, I just feel, and you know what else, just to talk about the failure that I felt like yesterday, it's so helpful because it wasn't me, it was the ego.
Right. Yeah. It had nothing to do with you, in fact.
No, but I
Uh,
get caught
and
in it.
and and what you have to understand, and what of course you have to understand it. Well, you got to understand it. What I have to understand is that it's also um, it's also for them too.
Yes.
It's not. I'm not the only one in um, this place. I, we're all in this place where we're having to figure things out. And, Cliff, your husband, is just the same. There's,
Yeah, he wasn't even mad, but I just don't like being mean because I'm not like that. And I was
yeah,
mean. So,
right. But, ego is, so that's
yeah.
has nothing to do with you or me. All right,
No,
my
no.
dear.
All right. I love
Well,
you. Thank you.